There was also a comment in the break just about asking that I emphasize that astrology is not destiny. And Casey makes it quite clear that the will is stronger than any other influence. And so, we've all met somebody that says, well, I'm a Scorpio, you have to put up with me. And that's not Casey's version of astrology. It's that you may have these tendencies, like let's say for me example, I have my moon in Aries. And so I've had times in my life like a hair trigger temper. But it's not, my goal in my life is not to just have everybody deal with that. It's that basically from past lives I've had anger issues and I'm seeding it in this life as something to work through. So it's a challenge, but the goal is not that I act off of that tendency, that I learn to work with it through the use of my will. But sometimes astrology, we don't just seed our helpful issues, we also seed our challenges so that we want to work through those things. So a lot of your astrology brings in challenging aspects that you have to use your will to work on. But I think it's very helpful when I realized, when an astrologer told me that I had my moon in Aries, it helped me not feel crazy and understanding that that was just that was a part of my nature, that I'm an Aquarius sun, happy-go-lucky, unless you cross me, and then and then the ram comes out of the barn. My girlfriend is back there nodding her head. She's met the ram before. It's great when I teach like this, and then people praise me, and I look at Monica and she kind of rolls her eye. If they only knew. And I always say that, coming here to the Casey Center at ARE, it brings out my highest self. It's like, apparently even when Edgar Casey would give readings, his lower aspects would rise above him like a little cloud. And he would give the reading, it would come through a very high vibrational, purified body. And then when he was done with the reading, those karmic aspects came back into him. So he had, he wasn't the same person that he was giving the reading as he was in his everyday life. He got lots of readings for his health, and a lot of times the last sentence would be, good luck getting him to do any of this. like most of us. All right, why don't we have good time. Any questions about anything that's come up so far? Yes, I'll repeat the question. Or yeah, go ahead and I'll repeat it.
I heard something I've never heard before. I always thought birth time was for a natal chart, and now you're saying Casey indicated it was when the soul.
Yes.
How do you figure out what time that is?
So his question is about the challenging aspect of that Casey says the chart is cast when the soul enters the body, not the time of physical birth. Well, I recommend that book by John Wilner, Willner, I think it is, either one L or two L's. And it's got Casey's name in it, Casey's astrological prediction, something like that. And he goes into that you have to, in a way, work with the ascendant. And the ascendant is your physical appearance, your physical aspect. So it becomes a challenge to kind of start to play with that. And so you almost have to tinker with looking at different charts to see which one you feel resonates best with you. Yes?
It said that anything not karmic is amenable to hypnosis, and you addressed that a little bit.
The question was about that hypnosis works very well for non-karmic issues. If it's karmic, it's not as amenable, meaning that sometimes there are conditions that we in our pre-life planning, we pick to have, to learn from. And so those are not going to be altered by suggestion.
But if it shows up, you can
try.
Address it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But let's say, like I use the example of if someone's born blind, that would more likely be a pre-life choice to experience blindness. You see, I'll talk about this later, but I think that a lot of illnesses that we contract in a lifetime, I call those guardrails, that they keep us on our spiritual path. So again, using Anita, she was on her path, she bumped into cancer, and she could have died, but you could say she was born again. She had a re-experience, and so it guided her on her spiritual path. And I think for a lot of us, we bump into illnesses to get us back on track. For me, I contracted chronic fatigue. And what it did is that my major coping mechanism was sports. And with chronic fatigue, I couldn't deal with, I had these things called feelings I had to deal with. And not having my painkiller, I had to start dealing with that stuff. And that's really what led me to Casey and on the spiritual path. So I see now that that illness got me back on track. And you hear that a lot. Like I remember when I used to read somebody say, getting the diagnosis of cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me. I never used to understand that. I said, how can you celebrate the day you got cancer? But now I realize because that was an awakening process. It was like not quite a near-death experience, but you realized if I keep going down this path, I'm going to die of cancer. But if I change some things spiritually, a whole lifestyle, that then I can be well. I have a choice point to make. And I think a lot of times illnesses create those, I call them the guardrails. Yes?
Have you seen any ways that children with autism can be helped?
Have I seen any ways that children with autism can be helped? I haven't worked with anyone. I've certainly worked with parents of children with autism and spectrum disorders, but I think that when a new condition comes in like this in large quantities, I think it's a part of an evolution. I think that there's a collective soul group message that's coming through this group. I haven't figured that out yet, but I love to try to figure that stuff out.
I understand that we have to use a sort of a conventional language.
Yes.
And I'm a foreigner. To me, that's really a challenge sometimes. I have a problem with the word regression.
Yes.
It's sort of a negative feeling at times.
Yes.
When you go into a place there is no time and space.
Yes.
I would rather call it progression therapy.
Yes, that's a good word, progression. I use the word soul contact, but if I say soul contact, nobody knows what I'm talking about. And so the word that's in the common mindset is past life regression. And so when somebody comes in for a past life regression, then I introduce to them this idea that they might be able to access more than that, and they might be able to access whatever might be most helpful for them. And most people opt for that, but they could, if they really want a past life memory or regression, then I can steer it towards that. But again, I think that maybe 10 years from now, there'll be other words, it'll have evolved. Because when I talk with other regressionists, they're all working differently now. It's really not, past lives are kind of passé. But it's kind of like we're moving into a broader consciousness of what can happen in a hypnotic session. Yes?
Okay, if you had a few past life.
If you've had a few past lives, yes.
Yes. In each life, the purpose is going to be the same?
In each life, is the purpose going to be the same? No. I think that in different lives, we set up different purposes. There may be a continuity of what's going on in the lives, but I think that we have, like when Edgar Cayce would give a reading, a Akashic reading for somebody, he would show 3 or 4 lifetimes where there was a continuity of virtues, of working with spiritual ideals, which are basically about trying to help other people evolve in consciousness. And then he would show maybe a lifetime or 2 where there was going into more selfishness. And he would say, in a way, to be careful about those tendencies. So I think that each life we sort of set in motion, usually in our pre-life planning, what we want to work on. But I think that in general, each lifetime, if we have karmic issues, karmic attachments, we're trying to work those through. Because I call those like they're stains on the soul that have to get worked out. Like what happens on earth has to get resolved on earth. And so let's say like, as a recovering Catholic, I'm not quite recovering Catholic, but as a Catholic, to talk about Jesus' past lives, I feel like the lightning bolt is going to hit me right there. But Cayce talked about the past lives of Jesus, and he said that he had been Joshua. And if you read about Joshua, Joshua was violent. Joshua killed people. And so what is implied is that Jesus had karma as Joshua, and where Joshua killed, Jesus healed. So in a way, he was making amends for a previous lifetime. And I think we're all doing that. We're all, where we sowed hate in a past life, we're sowing love. We're repairing that. And then that cleanses the karmic influence.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, one more question and then I'll continue. In the blue there.
So I'm trying to get a little clarity about what's karmic and what isn't karmic. So for an example, a lifelong chronic fear, a phobia, would that be karma?
That's a great question
Or would
because
that be like a belief, something that you just thought over and over and over, mind programming?
well, that's a good point because it is, there's different types of karma. And so what Casey said is that most of our karma is with our own self. And that's amenable to suggestion. What he's saying is that, kind of like Anita was saying yesterday, it's that there's no judgment really outside of ourselves. We have tons of judgment for ourselves. And we keep ourselves trapped by our own, like we may have met the karma that we need to meet. Let's say you're mean to somebody. Somebody has to be mean to you and you learn from it. Then you need to let it go. But a lot of folks don't let it go. They keep beating themselves up about this for lifetimes. For example, a little boy, well, he was about 14 and he was bedwetting every night. And there was no physical cause. Poor kid couldn't go to camp or go to sleepovers, so embarrassing. And so they asked Edgar Casey and he said, well, this boy in a past life was given the charge of dunking women in water that were accused of witchcraft, and he feels so guilty about it, he's dunking himself every night. He didn't have to do that. He met that karma. Just give him the hypnosis, the pre-sleep suggestions to let that go. And they did, and he released it. So that you could say that that was still karmic, but it didn't need to be. When I say karmic, it's more like the big K karmic means that it's something that needs to be met, whereas versus something that's more like self-abuse or kind of like something you can let go of that you haven't let go of. Hypnosis helps you with that second type. If your karma is with self, if you've already learned the thing and you're just kind of stuck in a repetition, then hypnosis is very helpful for releasing that.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question and then we'll.
What would you say about somebody with a phobia? Just that, let's say you've been driving. Well,
Someone with a phobia.
Okay, so let's say you're driving. There's this Bay Bridge in over the Chesapeake Bay that people are terrified
Right,
of.
some people are very
You
terrified
drive
of
it
bridges.
multiple times, and then one day you have a panic attack on that bridge. Would that be a download from a past life?
So she's saying that you have no problem going over this bridge, and then one day you go over the bridge and you have a panic attack. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, out of the blue. Would that be a
There's
download?
different possibilities. Sometimes the past life karmic issue could come at that time. So maybe when you were 36, something happened and you drowned or a bridge collapsed that you were on it, and so the download of that feeling comes in at that similar age. So that's a possibility. But that would be something that would be very amenable to hypnosis because again, you see, they start spiritually, and then when things are at the level of the mind, they're very amenable to suggestion. But once they've downloaded into the body, so let's say that person keeps the panic attacks, and that panic attack leads to behaviors that eventually become cancer, then it's going to be harder to use hypnosis to relieve the cancer. But if you catch it while it's at the level of mind, then you can alleviate the situation. And then oftentimes what happens in a regression is that you deal with the karma of it, that you realize why something is happening, and then you realize if there's some issue that you have to make amends about. Usually the hardest person to forgive is ourselves. And so a lot of times there's a lot of self-forgiveness. Maybe the panic came because you were a mother and 4 kids, you decided to do something that led to the death of everyone, and you're feeling so bad about that. So not only is there a drowning, but then there's self-blame because of that choice. And then a regression can help untangle that knot. Forgiveness, I guess in Aramaic, means untangling. So I think that sometimes we have knots that have been tangled in the past that the regression can help that process. Good, great questions. Now just a couple things. I have a website, peterwoodbury.com. It has my email on there. If you want to continue a dialogue, just feel free to jump on me with that there. Also, some folks, you're coming up and asking, right now I'm booked for while I'm here, but I also do work over Skype, so remotely, and it's actually very effective. I think that when I first started working with Skype, I was a little skeptical about it because, even like with Edgar Casey, I thought for him to give a reading, the person had to be physically present. And I realized they could be anywhere in the world and he could tune into them. And so I started working with Skype because as teaching it, I had to, you have somebody who lives in the middle of nowhere and they've regressed the 4 people that live in town. In order to keep going, that working with technology helps. And so I found that first being skeptical with Skype, it's actually very effective. I think there's a couple of things. For hypnosis to work, a person has to feel safe and comfortable. So when they come to my hotel room, they might not feel, it takes a while to feel safe and comfortable. But if they're at their house and their little dog is right there, they already have a feeling of comfort. And then also, it's required that you have a headset. And so my voice comes into both of your ears. So you're bicamerally stimulated. And then also you can control the volume just the way you like. And then with the headset, you don't hear extraneous sounds. So I'll hear the mailman at the door, I hear the dog barking, but the person doesn't hear any of that. So it's another, you can just contact me through my website, peterwoodbury.com, if you're interested. Now here's another interesting learning. It's that it's been very helpful for me to realize this, and it's come through my work, is that life on earth is work. You know how you have a job and then you go home and you relax? Your incarnation here is work. You didn't come here to party like a rock star. Maybe you did, but that's work. You're going to pay for that. So you're here to accomplish tasks. Now your ego, your soul does all the planning. The ego comes into existence the moment you're born. And so your ego is like, I did not vote for this. I don't know what this is. And you're going to try to get out of what your soul has planned. But it's very helpful to know that when people think, how come my life is so difficult, so much suffering? Well, it's because it's a school, you're here working on tasks. But what most people forget to do is to go home. Like when you go to school, right? You go to school and then the bell rings and you go home. A lot of folks don't go home. They stay at the school, they sleep in the locker, they sleep in the gym, they just wait for the next day. And so what are the ways that you go home? You meditate, you try to sleep, you try to remember your dreams, you do this work, that's home. Now, while you're incarnate, you can go home too. You don't have to wait till you die to go. Before you're born and after you die, then you're fully home. But while you're here on earth, visit, go home. You can go home every night. Casey says all of us, every night, we leave our bodies and we travel in behind the veil into our multidimensional self. And that's when we contact our guides and our counsel. And they give us the guidance so we can wake up refreshed and renewed. Now, I'll tell you a little something I've learned. Edgar Casey's time, 1920s to 1940s, do you know how many hours a night the average American slept? 9 hours. How many of you have slept 9 hours in the last 20 years? Good, you guys are sleeping 9 hours? Whoa, I missed the bus. I don't remember the last time I slept 9 hours. You know, I sleep 9 hours if I've just come back from, intercontinental travel and I'm just exhausted. I might sleep 12. But average American, every night, 9 hours of sleep. But that was before there were 700 channels, 3 screens, cell phones, email, pretty soon they just have a chip in our brain. We don't even need that phone. It's just like click, click, just tap in and do all this stuff. Average American slept 9 hours back then. Now we're down to 6.5 hours. And Casey said sleep is a sixth sense. He says in sleep we tap into our multidimensional self. Dreams are just downloads of this multidimensional reality. And so if you're working with your dreams, you're really using the resources. That's why I think when Jesus said that you have life more abundantly, I think most of us are not living abundantly. Most of us are just scraping by. And I know the society doesn't work this way. The society wants you to have the television and the computer and the cell phone that's like constantly stimulating you. And that, we have to start learning sleep hygiene. I'm trying to learn to put the cell phone that's not the first thing and the last thing that I look at, because it just taps us right into the 24-hour flow. If you ever go to Las Vegas, there's no clocks in Las Vegas. All the casinos are lit up. It can be 4 in the morning. You have no idea. It's just going 24 hours. But that's what we're starting to do. You remember when television, they used to be like, they play the national anthem and we are ending broadcasting for the day. You can watch that now. You'd laugh because there's no ending of broadcasting. It's all 24/7 going. And so that part of this work is remembering life. You're here to do work, but you can have access to go home. When Casey says, when you tire of your friends and your neighbors, turn inward. Go into the inner temple. Yes, our soul plans our incarnations to grow, to learn, and to release karma. Oh, look at Edgar Casey. What does he have to say? For many an individual entity, those things that are of sorrow are the greater help for unfoldment. So you want soul development. Who wants sorrow? Right? You want to grow spiritually? You want sorrow? No. No, remember? This is, oops, where did he go? Yeah. The ego doesn't want any of this stuff. Suffering has meaning. You know, this is, we all wonder, I had a really rough childhood. Now, this is going to, bear with me. Let me make this point. That the ego and the soul think of things differently. The soul wants to release a lot of karma. It wants to grow and learn. Now, when you think of your life, have you grown and learned from easy things, or have you learned and grown from overcoming obstacles? When you think of the greatest things of your accomplishments, did they just hand it to you, or did you have to work at them? So there's a sense of accomplishment through overcoming obstacles. Now, the greatest obstacle to spiritual growth is our own free will. The only thing that can separate you from the Creator is your own free will, your ability to choose. So, for example, these flowers, this lectern, it has no free will. It's all in divine plan. But we were given the choice. We were given the ability to follow the spiritual path, or to be selfish and do whatever we want. We have that free will. Now, what happens in childhood? You don't have any free will. You're born to these, sometimes they're monsters. They're called your family. And you can't fire them. You can't say, I'm going. You can't be 6 years old and say, I want to be an emancipated child. No, you have to deal with this karma. So a lot of times in the pre-life planning, childhood has a lot of struggles, a lot of work to overcome. A lot of your soul group stuff is in there. And sometimes for the rest of your life, you're trying to work out these patterns. Let me give you a couple examples of this, what seems quite like a paradox. So I had this one client, a woman, she was probably in her early 70s, and she says, Peter, you bring up this topic that you say Edgar Casey said, that you pick your parents. Now let me tell you what parents I picked. Okay, my mom was a drug addict. My dad killed himself when I was 6 years old. I had 2 brothers. They also killed themselves. She says, my life is a story of addiction and suffering and struggle. Why the heck did I pick? You think I picked these people? I'd like to find out. Okay, so that's a good question. So she goes into a pretty deep trance, and she contacts her guides. And so she asks the question, why did I pick my parents? And her guide said, well, your dad was really intelligent, and your mom was good looking. And you wanted to be intelligent and good looking. And she's like, are you kidding me? And her guide said, yeah, sort of. Can you imagine? They have senses of humor. And they said, you wanted to grow. You really chose a life to grow and to learn and to overcome obstacles. And you've done a fantastic job. We're proud of you. Can you imagine that? Odd, right? The ego-soul paradox. Another woman came in and she said, I want to find out with my guide. She says, I grew up without a father. My mother was as self-centered as they came. I basically was her little servant my whole life. I never had any love for her that I could call love. I maintain contact. If I don't contact her, she could care less. So I'm the one maintaining a contact with her. And then, the way this loving God works, I was unable to have a child physically. So I adopted a child at a couple of months after birth. She had so many problems that now she's an adult. She can't stand me. All I did was try to love this girl the best I could. She can't stand me. And to have any relationship with her, I have to be in touch with her. So I'm in this mess sandwich. I got my mother and my daughter, neither of them give me any love. Why would I have picked this? She goes into trance, and her guides tell her, in this life, you chose to learn unconditional love. And you picked this situation so you could learn to love in places where there was no love coming back. Interesting, isn't it? That's not the way the ego looks at things. The ego didn't think they'd signed up for that kind of stuff. See, the ego was birthed when you came in. It's a finite part of you. The ego had no part of the planning. This little finite part of you, it didn't go down when the vote came in. It's like a victim of your soul choices. And it lets you know, I didn't vote. I didn't know The ego, like Buddha says, it pursues pleasure and avoids pain. That's all it wants. It doesn't want any of this stuff. So oftentimes I'll say, the soul comes here to work, and the ego wants a pina colada. It wants to be on the beach with a little flower drink. And every now and then, have a pina colada. But when you're at the beach and you're having the pina colada and the waiter spills it on you, yeah, okay, there's no perfection in this world. I've got to deal with this issue. Now this came to me in some of my own regression work. A lot of what I have gleaned is very helpful from regressions have been just my own personal experiences. And sometimes, there's so many things that we think that only the great saints are supposed to have, only the great teachers, but that we can have those experiences. So we can have revelations in a way. We can have things explained to us. Now, I had a regression where I was working with, teaching a small class with just 2 students. And to learn regression, you have to practice. And so they had practiced with each other. They needed to practice with someone else, so I let them practice with me. But I'm very easy to regress because I've done it so many times. I'm a natural at doing it now with so much practice. But what came to me in this experience was it was explained to me. Now, one of the things I think that, bless you, I've learned with this is that you get answers that resonate with your way of thinking and your level of consciousness. Sometimes you get things that are universal truths, but a lot of times you're getting things in a personalized sort of way. And that was made quite clear to me in my regression. It said, Peter, this is being kind of dumb, bless you, this is being dumbed down in a way so that you'll understand it. So I got that. But what it was showing to me was that the soul, the way that it's created, has the ability to be one with everything. That's our original state with oneness. The gift of creation from God was that we also can be individualized in our consciousness, but we can bump between both. So it's like we can be a liver cell. I'm a liver cell, but I'm a body. I'm part of a body. And so I was aware of just kind of bumping into the big view, the oneness, all of us here together, but I can also realize I have a little individualized aspect. Now, as we were, created and, as Casey says, we were given the universe of worlds to explore. What happened here is that dual aspect of us, to be individual and collective, here, only the individual aspect could make it into this 3-dimensional reality. The wholeness had to stay in the subconscious. So what's happened in this world is that many of us have gotten trapped in the individualized aspect of ourselves. It takes a lot of work to bump up into the whole and the individual. And when you're cut off from your wholeness, that's what creates fear and all these kind of viruses. And then we start acting non-spiritually because we've forgotten the oneness. And so that's what was shown to me, that Earth kind of keeps us stuck in a separateness consciousness. And I think injury happens from thinking we're separate. And I think healing happens from wholeness or oneness. I'll give you an example. I have 2 sisters and a brother. Growing up, was close and distant in fighting with a brother and sister. And I had one sister that didn't really have a relationship with. And in a way, if I was shown a picture of Christmas or something like that, I'd say, who's that? And I go, oh, that's right, that's my sister. So it's just odd that I had this kind of distance from her. And then, you see, where does this story go? Okay, so then she married, she had a first marriage, she had a child, she had a second marriage. And in that second marriage, her second husband started to help her separate from my parents because she was kind of overly close to them. And so I thought that was useful, that she needed some help becoming autonomous. But then this guy didn't stop there. He started separating her from everyone and separated her even from her first son. And I was very, very angry about it, very toxic, almost shaming in my emails to her about how could she do this. And I remember talking to an enlightened friend, I think it was Pat Belisle. You met him? Don't stand too close to him, the light will burn. So I was talking to him about this, and what does he say? He says, well, Peter, why can't you just love your sister the way she is? And I'm like, would you shut up? Like, God, don't you ever have a lower thought ever? And he's like, God, I'm sorry, Peter. So, I knew he was right. But, can you forgive everyone for everything? Sometimes you can. Have you heard of Sicilian Alzheimer's? That's where you forget everything but the grudges. I don't know why I hate you, but I hate you. You got every reason why. It's just. So there was something going on, right? So I didn't know quite what it was. Now I go to Brian Weiss's training. You know, sometimes it's like Brian Weiss has like Anita was talking about. There's like an energy field, like a darshan around that guy. So it was during the practice sessions, but of course he was nearby. And in this practice session, I saw myself in Ireland, and I was walking to prayers, and I realized that I was like a priest in training, and I was going to go to the church, and we were going to pray, and I hated it. It's like this church, whatever we were, it was like an asylum for the mentally ill. It was orphans. Nobody was there by choice. We were all thrown in there to factory to turn us into priests. And so, you know, I remember prayers, some people were facing the wrong way. Their mum, you know, it was so old. Now, the person regressing me said, well, how did you get here? So boom, next thing that pops in my mind, I see myself as a little boy, probably 6 or 7 years old. I have a little suitcase. I'm terrified. And what's happening? I'm being put up for adoption. My parents are about to leave me here. Well, guess who my mom and dad were? My sister and her husband. So immediately I got it. I was like, oh, no wonder I never trusted her. She puts people up for adoption. I'm not going to get close to her. And then what was she doing to her son? It was very similar. I was personally identifying that. But what happened? Because now, bless you, like Anita was saying, you're non-local. When you're in a regression, you realize that your ego self is identifying with the little boy. But what could I do? I could feel everybody's feelings. So I went into my sister's feelings. What was she feeling? She was horrified. She didn't want to do this. They had like 12 kids. They couldn't feed them all. The little boy, was 6 or 7, took it personally. I didn't realize that this was not personal. This was Ireland. It was happening all over. That's why the church was full of orphans, because there were too many kids. You know, the Catholic Church was, anyway, I won't go into that. I think I was born Catholic for a good reason. And that helped me understand. And I realized, oh, I'm holding this grudge, this memory about something that didn't happen in this life, happened in a past life. And so right away, I contacted my sister. Pretty much a day or two, I realized I'd let it go. And so I contacted her and I said, hey, do you want to get together for lunch? We haven't seen each other in a while. She said, lunch? Let me talk to my husband and see if that's okay. And so she calls me back and she says, well, he wants to join us, but we can't talk about this, that, and the other thing. And the old me would have been, I'm going to talk about each one of those. And I said, that's fine. We'll talk about whatever you want. And we went and had lunch, and it was fine. Felt healing. I wouldn't say that they're my favorite people, but I don't feel a grudge or resentment about that. So that's what I mean, that the injury happens because of this separate consciousness, and the healing happened when I started to connect with the wholeness and not take things. Here you take things personally. Here you realize it isn't personal. There's other issues at work. Like that guy who got the spear. He took it personally. He probably realized, oh, I had it coming, or who knows what. He didn't explain it, but there was a lot of insight that had come to him. So again, I just want to emphasize this reading. Spirit is the life, mind is the builder, and the physical is the result. I also think that, another way of saying it, illness happens from the separate consciousness, and healing happens when we reconnect. And I mentioned that illnesses are the guardrails on your soul path, oftentimes. I don't think that one size fits all. So I don't believe in absolutes. I don't think that it's always this or that. So here's what seems to come through when you do a soul contact work. You can have a past life memory. You can have a future life progression. It shows potentials and probabilities. I think that when you start doing this work, just like a doctor, you start to have specialties. And I think that, let's say Brian Weiss does a lot of future life progressions. I don't have that many of those. I do more guide or in-between life contact. But I think that if you have a specialty, your guides work with you. They'll lead you towards these types of experiences. And sometimes people can have mediumistic, contact deceased loved ones, pets. Sometimes they're dreamlike, symbolic experiences. Sometimes you get direct answers to your questions. For example, a woman, her purpose for a session was she wanted to understand why people were so mean to each other. And she, especially politicians. She says they promise all this stuff, and they get elected, and then they don't do any of it. They do like the opposite. We've been betrayed. And she says, why do people do that? And so her experience, it was like a dream, like it was a vision where she saw seagulls on the shore fighting over scraps. And the Morgan Freeman like voiceover was, that's what people are like. You know, that basically she was told that that's what evolution, that we're growing, but right now we don't know how to share, and so there's a fighting over finite resources. But the message was, give it time, that souls are learning, there is progress being made. You know, this isn't the final state of human consciousness. So she was very enlightened, helped by that. And I thought it was a great message as well. So you learn a lot in these experiences. Now also, I'm a poster child for cognitive therapy. And I think, like I talk about Woody Allen, you know, he's been in psychoanalysis for like 100 years. And he talks about it. He'll say, you know, I understand all my problems perfectly. Nothing's changed, but I understand who to blame for all my issues. So that's a little bit, and talk therapy is very, very helpful. But like I could have never gotten to the issues with my sister through rational cognitive therapy. I had to do something behind it. And what happens in a regression is that they're experiential. You're actually going through experience, and then you're having emotions of that time. You're not remembering something, you're actually in it. So you have a dual consciousness. You're kind of in the experience of the child, but you're also bringing an enlightened view to it also. And so that rewires it. It's a little bit like the man with the spear. And then there's spiritual, because anything that takes you to oneness is spiritual. And so you have a chance to move out of your little perspective and move into, oh, I'm connected to all things. I'm not just in this life, I'm a little separate aspect of creation, but there's a reality where all of this is connected. And sometimes what happens on earth is that, you know, if you look at the veil, it looks like those are 4 separate fingers, but behind the veil, they're all connected. And what happens in the separation consciousness is the fingers start to fight with each other. They punch each other, and they forget that that's only going to injure the hand if your fingers start fighting with each other. But that becomes the enlightened view when you go into the deeper perspective. Yeah. You all want to explore your feelings? I realize that as a people, we don't really like feelings. You know, it's like we've become a little feeling adverse. I think there's some cultures that are very feeling oriented, and I think a lot of people here are kind of like ugh, the feels, some, you know, come up. All right, I'm just going to go through some, this one I explained, how the Akashic records are dynamic, the man with the laryngitis who went in and was able to tinker with the records. And I told you these 2 stories about the guides answering directly. Why did I pick my parents, and why have I never gotten love in return? For the purpose of learning. And these are different patterns that seem to come up for people. Probably the most common pattern in the ARE community, the New Age community, is someone who comes in for a session and they feel like, I have these healing abilities, but I don't know, something's holding me back. I feel like I'm kind of psychic, but I'm worried about what people will think. And what happens is they find out 1, 2, 5, 10 lifetimes where they've been killed for having these gifts and talents. You know, what used to be called witches. And so they have that soul memory that they want to be careful. Like one woman, I remember, she said that in her past life memory, she said everybody in town is dying, but they don't know why. There's a illness going around. People are dying. And she says it's because of the water. We need to boil the water. And there's a bacteria in it that's what's causing it. But she says, as soon as I tell everybody and they stop dying, they're going to kill me for being a witch. And that's exactly what happened. She told the people, they stopped dying. How did she know? Which? Isn't that, you know, that's why I think Jesus kept saying, you judge a tree by its fruits. She didn't put the bacteria in the water. She got it out. It's a good fruit. But anyway, they didn't know that. They killed the tree with good fruits. But that's a common theme. Sometimes there's abandonment fears. You see, in this life, when my mom used to leave me at daycare, I would panic. And I realized it's because I was like, okay, this is the orphanage, and never seeing mom again, because I had that pattern from the past. Suicidality can be a pattern. And it's not that you go to hell and that there's no hope for you. Edgar Cayce himself had committed suicide in a past life. What the learning is that in this life, you have to get through those feelings. In a past life when you committed suicide, you thought that you could escape the pain. And that pain, just because you detach from the body, you still feel the feelings. They stay with you. There's a wonderful book written by Ann Purrier. She's a medium, and her son committed suicide as a teenager, and he communicates to her from the other side about the whole experience. It's very in sync with Edgar Cayce. It's called Stephen Lives. And Ann Purrier is the wife of Herb Purrier, who is a big teacher here. So if you get that book, just try to buy it from them directly, and they have their center is called the Logos Institute. I'll share that with you if you're interested in it. But a lot of times in this life, you'll have a suicide pattern, and the goal is to get through it, not to succumb to it. And sometimes a regression can be very helpful, where a person sees that, where they realize that they've killed themselves in past lives. I had one client who, you see, since I have a traditional practice and then I have this woo-woo practice, my traditional clients, they Google me and they find out about my woo-woo practice, and then some of them want to get a woo-woo service. And so this one woman who I was working with traditionally wanted to try a regression, and so we did that, and she saw in a past life where she had committed suicide, a life where she was suicidal and hadn't, and then a whole third life where she had no suicidal intention. And that was very helpful for her to realize this life is continuous. Anyone who's contemplating suicide does not want to hear that they can't escape it and that they actually have to face it again. A lot of times when you talk to people on the soul level, the ego is going and the soul is going. Mm-hmm. So you can talk to the soul and the person gets that download. The bully victim, this pattern is a lot now where you see it's called a narcissist and a codependent, where you're loving somebody who's incapable of love, and then you have to work out that pattern. And so that comes up in past lives. Sometimes it's with an individual, and sometimes it's just a pattern. And the pattern is that you have to, see, for a lot of women, this is like the first generation where you could ever divorce. You could leave a man. There were plenty of lifetimes where you were property. You were just chained up. And so this is a lot of soul progress is happening with these folks that are working with this bully, this possessive soul, and learning how to get free of them. And one person was able to see that not only was she now a first life able to divorce and become independent, but she realized that the bully had also evolved too, that he wasn't. Like sometimes when I work with couples, I'll say, just divorcing is a lot better. Last life you killed each other. So sometimes there's progress in this work. And of course, sometimes we have amends making. We're with souls to kind of repair things. There was one couple where there seemed to be a disparity in one of the members of the couple just seemed to really be taking having a lot of patience with the other partner's just stuckness and just slowly making progress. And in a regression, he was able to see that in a past life, he had been a very ne'er-do-well rich guy who would frequent the geishas. And there was this one geisha that was in love with him, and he just toyed with her. And he toyed with her to the point where she killed herself. And then after she died, he kind of had an awakening and said, God, I think I loved her. And so he was revisiting that relationship. And he felt that his karmic obligation was for 3 years. So he worked in that relationship trying to repair something. But after 3 years, they parted ways. So that's sometimes we have these making amends patterns. Soul voluntarism is when a soul is pretty evolved and it comes in to be like an earth angel. So it'll come in, there's lots of parents that there's not a waiting list of souls wanting to be. Like I've worked with like homeless families, where they have sex on the street and they conceive a child. I remember working with this one family, the child's name, her name was Caprice. And I said, how'd you get that name? Oh, it was a car. The girl was named after a car. But I'm thinking there's a lot of families where that the parents are so ill-equipped that there's going to be abuse, there's going to be a neglect. And so a lot of times it's an elevated soul that comes in because nobody else, there has to be a soul coming into that experience. And so oftentimes there's souls that come in to do that. Sometimes they come in handicapped because, like, again, yesterday, as Anita was saying, heaven is in a way, it's not a place, it's a consciousness. And Casey says, we grow to heaven leaning on the arms of the people that we've helped. And so that when a soul comes in handicapped, they're giving everybody opportunities to grow through helping them. They never help anybody, everybody helps them, but spiritually they're helping people. Do you follow that? So all the times there's a lot of, and I think a lot of times folks step in and take things to protect us. And sometimes we're aware of it and sometimes we aren't. And I think that most of us here have had an angel, either an earth angel or a spiritual angel, who's done some kind of intervention that has saved us a lot of suffering and pain. Somebody has to go through something. You know, like any period in history, there's going to be suffering that has to happen. And sometimes there's very elevated souls that come in to experience that, to protect others. Sometimes a session also awakens you to past life abilities that you are not cognizant of. Basically, what I've learned is anything you want to do, that you have a desire to do, you've got plenty of past life energies that do it, but it's just that it's your belief in your smallness that limits you. A regression gets you in touch with your vastness, and then you're more likely, you have confidence to try something out. But you don't need to do it, but if you have a desire for something, try it out. You know, let the experience be what guides you. And then I had a mother-daughter come for a session, and they had recently lost the husband. So the woman's husband, the girl's daughter, he had passed away. So the daughter was probably in her 40s, the mother was in her 60s, and they had lost the man, the father. And they were going to come on 2 different days, and they weren't going to talk to each other about their experience. They wanted to, go blind with it. So they would both tell each other after both of them had an experience. So the mother came first, and she had that typical reunion that you hear at near-death experiences, where you go into the light and you see all your deceased loved ones and all your pets are all there. And so she saw her husband. And the basic message is communicated is life is continuous, love is continuous, and so there's just this warm connection. Of course, you miss the person because they're not in the physical body, but it's somewhat helpful to realize that they're there and they're waiting for you, and there'll come a time when you're reunited. So she had that typical experience. Then the next day, the daughter came in. The mother hadn't talked with her. She had almost the exact same experience. She went to the light, she saw her dad, she saw all her loved ones and pets, and then she also saw Jesus there. And so she's saying, oh, look, there's my dad, oh my God, my grandmother's here, and there's I think that's my great-grandfather, oh, and there's Jesus, and there's my Fifi. And so she's meeting with everybody, and in my mind, I'm like, Jesus wasn't here yesterday. What's going on? So I said, you said Jesus, after she had connected with everybody, I said, you said Jesus is there? She said, oh, yeah. And so I'm like, well, do you want to get a blessing from him? She's like, okay. And so she said, oh, wow, he's stepping forward, and he's putting his hand over my head. And I'm like trying to lean in and see if I can get some of it. And so she's getting this blessing from Jesus. And then she said, oh, he's taking me by the hand. And I said, okay. And she said, oh, he's taking me to a backyard of a house I lived in when I was a kid. And then she said, oh, he's reminding me of something. She's saying, oh, he reminded me of like when I went to first grade, I didn't really make a lot of friends. And so I prayed a lot. I asked God to help me make friends. And that didn't seem to work fast enough. So I started praying to the devil. and I said to the devil I'd give him my first child, I'd give him my parents, anything he wanted. I just wanted to make friends. And she said, I kind of forgot about it. I made friends. But then when I was about 12, I dreamt that a minotaur, half man, half bull, came and said, you promised us this, and she woke up terrified. And then she said she had eventually forgotten about that, but she said, oh, Jesus is here to tell me to let that go, that I was a little girl, that there's nothing being held against me because I prayed to the devil. Just let that go. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, I thought that, I just think of that soul of Christ, that, when we're crossing to the other side, that he's like, oh, okay, she's got something she's holding on to. Let me see if I can flick it off. And I'll tell you, there's lots of experiences where people have with spiritual beings. Sometimes I joke and I said my fees should have contact with Jesus, $50 extra, Buddha, 50, 20, or all these, direct communication. Anyway, you get the point. So there was. I'm sorry, that joke got me off track. I was thinking of another encounter with Jesus helping. Well, there's just lots of these experiences where people cross to the other side and they get these little things removed. Just kind of helps them with those. It'll come back to me, but there was another one with that. And then just with talking about pets, sometimes people ask about the souls of pets, and Casey said that our animals reincarnate with us. The one thing, though, is that it seems that pets are soul entities that are related to this solar system, that they're related to the Earth. Like we're galactic, and pets are solar, so they're here. This is their world. This is where they grow and learn. They don't, when we go to Akamigagan, wherever we go, we can visit them here. This is their environment. It's like a little bit like, they like the earth, they like nature, they like smelling things. When we go to these places where there's nothing to smell, they don't like it there. So we just leave them here. We just kind of come visit them in their natural environment. What was I going to say? There was that one other story about Jesus and the Christ and people having those just cool experiences. I just loved that one with the little girl and just having that flicked off. That kind of. There's other instances though where people have those experiences, and then with future lives, I'm not sure. Casey had that dream of a future life, and he said all time is one. So I'm not sure where the locus of time is. I mean, I think is it a wheel and it's all happening in one time. All of our is it like fingers? Like sometimes I think of, is my older brother like a past life and a younger sister a future life? Like, is it somehow, are they all simultaneous? Like we can think of, you're born into a family first, you have one reality, you're born into the family next, you have another reality, the youngest. Is that how those are simultaneous experiences? That like I'm having an experience, my brother's having a similar experience, are we one in some kind of way? Now one thing that, there's lots of strange things that happen now. You've noticed that? I don't know what happened 500 years ago, but there seems to be one thing I'm noticing that's starting to happen more is people are experiencing times in history that overlap with this life or have a very short in-between life. And one thing that's occurred to me is I think that we're living in a very open time. I think it's a transition time between the Piscean and the Aquarian age, and I think time accelerates. So I think that laws are different. Even relativity, Einstein's theory of relativity has to do when you're traveling at the speed of light or even faster than light. That's not a normal experience. So it's like, but I think that in between ages, things change too. So what I think is happening is that I think that the Akashic records are open, meaning that you can have a library and it has life of Caesar, life of whoever, and you could read the book and you can learn about a person's life through reading that book. I think now, if there's any experience that we need to glean, we can experience it. You can go into the Akashic records of somebody else. And so you can download the experience of another soul and it'll have personal influence on you. And I think, isn't that oneness? If there's no separation between you and me. You could experience my life and I could experience yours. And then we have full compassion for each other. So I think there's a strange time where the Akashic records are open. Because sometimes people seem to be downloading experiences that are in common with each other. And so I'm wondering, how is that possible? That's just a thought that I have, that I think that time and the way that individuality and separateness is being altered in a way in this transition time. I don't know if that's going to be permanent or what it means. But I've had a few folks go into the future, and this one woman, any work that you do, probably you're a doctor or counselor, you notice that you're in the role to help people, but God doesn't know that, and God sends you people that are here to help you. So your client is helping you. And so I've had a struggle with psoriasis. You know, anybody here have psoriasis or eczema? And it's like, if you read the Casey readings, you can get rid of psoriasis. You know what you got to do? You got to eat this green stuff that grows out of the ground. You know what? And then there's stuff like beer and peanuts. You got to let that stuff go. So sometimes I get rid of it, and sometimes I drink beer and eat peanut. And if you follow a certain diet and drink these teas, the psoriasis goes away. So a woman comes and she has psoriasis. She doesn't know I have psoriasis. Maybe she knows on the soul level, but she came in and she says, you know, I've got this psoriasis thing. I'd like to look at it, and you know, other issues. So she goes into deep trance, and she says, oh, psoriasis was a soul choice, a pre-life soul choice to test my will. And I was like, could you go home now? Because I totally knew it's to test your will. You have to have willpower to get up in the morning and eat your coddled eggs, you know, and then for lunch have your raw lunch. Don't you all have raw lunches every day? That's what Casey said, raw lunch, and then have your protein with vegetables. You do that, and then you have the teas. You know, the teas aren't that, saffron and slippery elm bark. You do that for 6 months, and psoriasis is gone. But, you know, try going to a restaurant. You know, anyway, traveling. Did anybody feel my pain? I have full excuses for, but I knew what she meant. You test your will can get rid of this. And I think a lot of us have conditions that are will related, like those are the guardrails. Because in order for me, that getting rid of psoriasis isn't just going to get rid of psoriasis, it's going to give me a kind of vitality and energy that will serve me in lots of other ways. But then she also went into the future. And she said, in a very hushed tone, she said, the Marines are rebuilding the world. Did you hear that? Yes. The Marines are rebuilding the world. So I was like, the Marines? The Marines are rebuilding the world? She's like, no, the Lemurians are rebuilding the world. The Lemurians are rebuilding the world. So anyway, I'm glad I asked, because my book would have been, like I was already thinking, oh, the Marines, it's the future, and you know, the warriors are now saviors, and now the priests are the bad guys. But, oops, it's already happening. So things have spun around, and then she said, no, it's the Lemurians. And then since then, you know, you learn something, and it's like, there's this whole belief that Lemurians are seated, and that they're underground, and they're kind of waiting, and that when the time comes, they're going to pop up, and they're like asparagus or something, pop up and help. But anyway, it's just interesting that came up. Now, these are some of the, I also think that it's not just, like when you do a regression, a person is moving into a multidimensional reality. They're moving into past lives, they're very fluid. And I think there's a lot of ways that when you bring them back in, that you can work with the fluidity. And so a lot of times I'll do a light bath, an experience of, see, I think it's like, it's almost that you can help them start fresh. Like, oh, that grudge and resentment for your sister, you can wash that away. And so in that fluidity, you can release a lot of the old stories and keep the consciousness. And I think that helps people, in a way, start anew or be born again. You know, it's like that controversial statement, but that's what it seems like to me, that in your in-between life state, you kind of clear the ledger. And when you're born, you know, when you're physically born, you start anew. But I think with a regression, before you come back in, there's a process where you can also start anew, because you've done in a microcosmic way what Casey says happens in between lifetimes. In between lifetimes, you face a lot of this karma, you learn stuff, and then you reorient towards your next life. But I think with a regression, you can kind of do some of that in a little microcosmic way. So I do that a lot. And before I bring people back, I just help them wash away these old stories and download the newness, like freshness. You know, when Edgar Casey was Rata, and when he was 400 years old, he was a little tired. And he went to the temples and he renewed himself. And he spent 7 years there, and then he lived another 100 years. And the reading said that in those 7 years, he let go of the things that aged him. And I remember that. And I think that some of our old stories age us. We're carrying these old stuff, a lot of stuff we aren't even aware of that we're carrying around with us. So here's an opportunity where someone can start anew. Just let that go. But you keep all that you've learned, because when you die, what do you keep? The consciousness. All you keep is consciousness. And if you've had a life of grudge and resentment, it's going to go with you. You're going to stay at that level of consciousness. But if you've worked at forgiveness and kindness and patience, that's a level of consciousness you bring with you. So I try to help people in a small way encounter that. And there's what's the secret? We're all here working through karma. And I think if there's anything that is a secret, it's that the best you can to work from the fruits of the Spirit. The fruits of the Spirit are basically ideals. And so when you encounter situations, can you act from a place of kindness, love, patience, forgiveness? That, like Casey says, against that there is no law. There's no karma. Like to me it was shown that it's like we're all trying to kind of fly from here to LA. And if you stay in the fruits of the Spirit, you're kind of above the karmic law. But when somebody says, Peter, you're an idiot, and I go, I am not, you are. Well, I've just landed in Chicago, and I'm going to have a dance with that pattern. And I may stay in Chicago for 1 lifetime or 10 lifetimes, but when I forgive and forget, I'm going to move up, and then I'll continue my path. And then somebody, again, says, Peter, you're not all that. Well, who are you? Oh, then I have a layover in Salt Lake City. And I might have a lifetime or 20 lifetimes until I continue my passage. So if you stay with the fruits of the Spirit, it's not easy. Now there's a retired general from the Air Force, and he was on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. His name is Larry Welsh. He's a big supporter of ARE, and he's come out of the closet as being an ARE person. I think he waited till he retired. But he came to speak here while he was a general, before retirement. He was on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And the directors asked him, I said, what of the Casey readings have helped you the most? And he said, well, there's a reading where Casey says, how you apply your ideal. And he says, it's great to have it when everybody's nice around you, but when somebody confronts you, somebody insults you, somebody gets right in under your skin, Casey says, take a step back. Remember your ideal and try to act from that place. And if you can't act from that place, stall. Just say, okay, this meeting is over. Don't let the unhealed self go through your mouth. That's many a lifetime is saved by shutting your mouth. And so that's what Casey says here. It's just like, if you can act from the fruits of the Spirit as best you can, you'll save many a lifetime. And so it's that, take that pause, just remember. And I think that's where meditation helps. I think meditation slows time down. If you're in a regular practice of meditation, it's much easier to be non-reactive. The natural self, our body is wired for reactivity. Because of survival, we're very, we're threat oriented. There's a lot of research that shows that. So you have to do a lot of work to alter our neurology. And so here's a Casey reading. It says, keep in mind that life is filled with opportunities to meet self. Be thankful for the pleasant encounters in life and be prepared to work at the unpleasant ones. Know that each soul constantly meets its own self. No problem may be run away from. Meet it now. And that's what I find all the time. In your life, you may try to run away from this person or that person, and if it's a pattern, it'll show up again. And so sometimes it's not just people, it's patterns. So here Casey is saying, we're here to deal with it. Thank God that you have plenty of people in your family that are supportive, hopefully a couple that are supportive, and then you have a lot of people to work with and to work on. Good, so that's the presentation part of my talk. Go, feel free to applaud like crazy. Oh God, you're too kind, thank you. Thank you. And now what I'd like to do is to give you an opportunity to try this out. And so what I'd like you to do, if you want to participate in this, is to think of some pattern that you have, something that you're working on. Maybe it's a relationship. Is there a relationship that, you think of, if you think of somebody and then work on that one. If you think of a relationship like, no, I don't want to work, that one. And when you get a little hitch in your neck, if there's a relationship that seems that there's some unresolved karmic stuff going on, or if there's a habit or a pattern that you have, something that your conscious self doesn't want to do, but your unconscious self, in the morning you say, well, I'm not going to do this, and by nighttime you say, tomorrow I won't do that. You have some kind of a pattern. Or if you have a pattern of way you react to things, if you have an anger pattern or a fear pattern, just take a moment and just pick a pattern that you want to work on. So it could be a relationship, it can be a pattern, something that maybe is relevant right now in your life, that you're thinking of as, you know what, if I could wave a magic wand and do some spiritual work, this would be the issue I would want to address. Good, so you all have something? All right, so pick that issue, and let's just consecrate this space. So let's just imagine all of us here surrounded in a beautiful golden light. Let's imagine that this is a light of protection, of guidance, and illumination. And inside this circle of light, we invite all those energies that are of the highest vibration and the purest intention, be they guides, masters, angels, all the keepers of this work. We invite them here with us. And now anything less than the highest vibrational energies with the purest of intentions, anything less to be outside of this circle of light, only the highest and purest to be here with us. Good. And the work that we'll be doing is to make a transition in consciousness. You each have something that you want to work on. You're coming earnestly seeking guidance and assistance from within. You want to turn and meet your maker, meet your guides deep within. So as we make this transition in consciousness, just put this issue that you want to work on. Just imagine that you're putting it on the table, so to speak. You're putting it on the table for your soul mind, for your guides, for the creative forces to assist you with. And you're showing the humility to ask for help. And just acknowledge that. I would like help with this issue. It's a stubborn one. It's something that seems to go beyond my conscious mind. I'd very much like guidance and assistance with this issue. And so it's a prayer, so to speak. You're putting this forward as a prayer, and you're asking that your prayer be heard. And we have full confidence that your soul consciousness, your guides, the creative forces themselves will hear your prayer and will birth into your consciousness whatever will be most helpful to you at this time. And so we're honored with all those here gathering to work with us, to protect us, to show the way. We're very honored as they are here to work with us. And once again, anything less than the highest vibrational energies with the purest of intentions, anything less to be outside of this circle of light, only the highest and purest. And so now let's begin to open our hearts and open our minds to the unseen forces that surround the gate within, to the places of grace, healing, beauty, and revelation. And let's put about ourselves that protection found in knowing that in essence we are one with our source. We are one with our Creator. Let's just feel that Christ spirit, a oneness spirit with us. Good. So with this protection in place, let's begin to explore. Let's begin to turn inward. And let's start with the breath, taking a nice deep breath in and slow breath out. Nice deep breath in and slow, gentle breath out. Another deep breath in and slow, easy, gentle breath out. And just begin to call forward the work that you want to do today. Just bring forward, just in your heart and mind, just reflecting upon this relationship, this issue. And just bring it forward in your consciousness, especially the feelings. Just bring forward the feelings in this relationship, the feelings in this pattern. And just let those feelings guide you deeper within. Just let my voice guide you deeper within. And just follow the feelings. With each word that I speak, just feel the feelings drawing you deeper within. And just notice the feelings now. Maybe the story, the pattern. Just focus on the feelings. Let those feelings become very clear and very strong. Let them guide you deeper and deeper within. There's so much here. Just feel yourself moving into your inner sanctum, the place where you meet the divine. Just follow yourself as you go deeper within. Now you know the way. You've been here many times. My voice is merely a guide. We'll walk this path together as we go deeper and deeper within. Deeper and closer. Closer and deeper within. It's easy, it's natural and peaceful. Following the feelings and bringing them with you. Just feel yourself, these feelings are somehow sacred opportunities. Just feel yourself loved and honored and respected. That your feelings are valid and are important. Just feel these feelings drawing you deeper within. Now soon I'll begin counting down from 10 to 1. And with each number you will be invited to go even deeper within. When I get to 1, you'll be at just the right place. You'll be at just the right place. It'll be familiar, comfortable, and safe. 10, 9, 8, deeper now, even deeper. 7, 6, 5, deeper, even deeper. 4, 3, 2, deeper, even deeper. 1, just the right place, familiar, safe, and comfortable. And feel yourself just opening your heart, your mind, completely safe and protected. Just feel all the energy surrounding you. Only good things happen here. Only healing happens here. Just feel your heart opening, your mind opening. Just imagine all of your senses opening like a flower opening in the sunshine. Petal by petal opening, receiving the light. Just feel yourself becoming pure consciousness, pure consciousness. And in this place of pure awareness and healing, just bring forward what you're seeking assistance with. Bring forward once again the feelings you'd like to work with today. Just bring forward these feelings. And just notice on a scale of 1 to 10 how intense the feeling is. Just let this feeling, and just let it become even stronger. Just feel this feeling becoming stronger. Even if it's unpleasant, just know there's help here. Let the feeling become more clear and strong. And just notice on a scale of 1 to 10 what level it's at. Let it become even stronger, even clearer. Just feel this feeling very clearly and strongly. And just open your third eye now. Open your inner eye. Open your heart, your third ear. And just begin to perceive with this feeling. Just notice what's coming to you. Surrounded by light and protection, your guides, your Akashic record is open. Just notice what's coming to you. Let it slowly become more clear. Slowly becoming more clear now. Notice what's coming to you. Just feel the feelings even stronger. Notice if there's any images, any sensations, Notice it's making sense. There's a continuity. Notice what's being revealed to you. You deserve this. It's all for you. Just take it in. Feel your guides with you. Just take in and receive. It's all for you. And just notice if you have any questions. Just think your questions and notice what comes to you. You're able to communicate telepathically with this experience. If you have any questions, just think them and then just notice what comes to you. And just be clear, you're seeking healing. You're seeking guidance. You're seeking to move into the oneness. You want to understand all perspectives. Just feel yourself connecting to all perspectives. And just take it all in. Just take it in. It's all for you. It's all for you. Now soon we'll begin coming back, but there's plenty of time. All time is one. There's plenty of time, so just receive what's here for you for now. Just take in the healing, the experience. Just feel it accelerating or slowing down just as it needs to be. What's here is being shown to you either very slowly, very clearly, very quickly. Just receive it all. It's all for you. And know that you can come here anytime you like. In a little while we'll be coming back. But this place is open to you always. You can come back here anytime you like. There's much more here for you. So receive for now what's here for you. Soon we'll begin coming back. What's been helpful and useful will stay with you. Anything finished will stay behind. What's helpful and useful is going to stay with you. Anything else will stay behind. Now we give thanks to the seen and unseen forces that have been part of this experience. We're very grateful what's been received. Your prayer has been answered. We're very grateful for this opportunity. Soon we'll begin to come back. And let's take a moment. Let's pause in the light. Now remember, what's been helpful and useful is going to stay with you. Anything else is going to stay behind. And just feel this light now. Feel yourself in this river of light. Feel this river of light just washing you clean. What you've experienced, what's been loosened, just feel this light just washing away anything old, anything finished, anything that served its purpose. Just notice how good that feels. Just the powerful light just washing you clean. And keep all that you've learned. Keep the consciousness, the patience, the kindness, the virtues, the humility, the compassion. Keep all that you've learned, all the gifts of all your experiences. But feel the old story being washed away. Just feel this light washing away anything heavy, old, finished, any grudge, resentment, anything you hold against yourself or others, any fear or doubt. Anything finished. Just feel this light washing it away. And notice how good that feels to be cleansed. It's like starting new, being born again. And fill yourself now with this new light of hope, joy, love, peace. Just feel your energy body, your energy field, filled with hopefulness. Good things are coming. It's a wonderful time to be alive. And feel your mind just filled with joy. It's a wonderful time to be alive. Your heart filled with love, renewed in love. It's a wonderful time to be alive. Your body, your physical body, cleansed, each cell renewed. Just feel yourself filling with vitality and energy. Good things are coming. And see and feel yourself as you move forward in space and time. See and feel yourself expressing your authentic self, your truth. Notice how good that feels to be fully present with your truth, with your soul self, as you share what you know. And just feel all those that are appreciative, the model that you're serving. Appreciative for what they're gaining from you, from your wisdom. Just feel that gratitude and appreciation from all those that you'll help. Just feel that as you move forward in space-time. Feel yourself drawn to this actualization of your soul purposes, your soul truth in this life. Good things are coming. It's a wonderful time to be alive. And just feel your gifts coming forward. You're remembering all your gifts, all that you have to share, why you're here, being part of this spiritualization of the consciousness of humankind. Feel yourself just enjoying the transition, the party, just feeling your part in the transition. Good things are coming. It's a wonderful time to be alive. Know this to be true. All these seed thoughts are planted deep in your heart and mind. They'll grow and bloom and bear fruit in the days and weeks to come. It's a wonderful time. Good things are coming. All these seed thoughts are planted deep in your heart and mind. They'll grow and bloom in the days and weeks to come. Know this to be true. Know this to be true. Now fill your cup with this light. You'll bring it with you. You can share it with anyone you like. Drink of it yourself. But when it runs low, be sure to come back to this light, this source, this water of life. Come, drink of it often. When you tire, when you need to refresh, to renew, to remember. Make your life easier, make your life more abundant. Come back to this place, this source of light, the water of life. It's here for you always. Your guides, your assistants, it's all here. Come back often. Remember this. Remember to come back. Make your life easier, more abundant. This source is infinite. Take all that you need. Drink of this water of life often. But for now, you'll take the full cup. You'll bring the full cup with you. Now soon I'll begin counting from 1 to 10. With each number, you'll slowly become more awake and alert. When I get to 10, you'll be fully awake and fully alert with a tremendous feeling of peace and well-being. What's been helpful and useful will have stayed with you. Anything else will stay behind. What's helpful and useful will stay with you. What's finished and resolved will stay behind. Also know that there's more to come. In the coming days and weeks, much more will be shown to you. There's much more to come. Good. So with your full cup, your full heart, remember the source is here. Come back often. With your full cup and heart, let's begin to come back. 1, 2, 3. Slowly now, becoming more awake, more alert. 4, 5, 6. All the systems of the body returning to normal and balanced conditions. 7, 8, 9. The body, the mind, and the spirit in perfect alignment. A feeling of peace and well-being. And 10. Fully awake, alert, and at peace. Welcome back. How was that? You get, just with a show of hands, how many of you felt that there was some transcendent, something, you got something out of it? Okay, good, wow. That over there was a big, that was a big place. Okay, we have a couple of minutes. Any questions or requests for refunds or anything like that?